This podcast is brought to you by MHA of Dutchess County and produced by CMJW Entertainment. This episode of The Vital Women of Washington Heights is proudly sponsored by Levia Med Spa.
You're listening to The Vital Women of Washington Heights.
Hi, Carmen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
So grateful to take this, to get this opportunity to talk to you about, everything. Yeah,
Welcome.
exactly.
Welcome. We're happy to have you on the show on this snowy, wintry day.
I'm out in Rhode Island, so
look
I'm
at
in the
you.
Rhode Island Service Center.
Wow. Girl, you're always traveling.
Yeah, all over the place.
Yeah.
All good.
Is it snowing there?
It was snowing this morning. I don't know because I don't have a window in this office, so I have no idea what it looks like outside right now.
Yeah. Probably is snowing. So first of all, let's talk about us. I'm Iris Douglas, and this is Yvette O'Sullivan. We are I&I, and we are the Vital Women of Washington Heights living in Dutchess County. And today we proudly present Ms. Carmen Rosado, who I personally know because I worked at Raymore and Flanagan. She is the VP of People and Engagement and HR. And I'm really happy to have you here because I had the best experience at Raymore. So we want to talk about empowerment. We want to talk about how did you get there?
Okay.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Yes.
Well, yes, today's show is about women empowerment. And I always like to do a bochinche because it's part of the Dominican culture. So I like to tie in our Dominican culture into every show that we do. And today's bochinche, we're going to be talking about Alba Vasquez, who is a 27-year-old Dominican astronaut. And I am very proud to say that she comes from my mother's hometown, Tamboril, Santiago, which is a huge honor for the people from my mother's hometown to have this young scientist. But in thinking about what she has accomplished, it also made me think about what women have accomplished today. Women as yourself, as vice president of the company, one of the vice presidents. And looking back, I was like, in the 1950s, there were like 33.9% of women in the workforce. I do not know what the numbers are today, but it's definitely not the 1950s. And back then, who knew that a Latina woman would be vice president of a company? And like today, I'm sure there's many vice president females in the workforce industry. So what an honor for you to have earned such a title to accomplish as a female Latina.
Yeah, thank you. It is, it's one of those things that you work towards, right? Your entire life. You want to be able to, grow with an organization, but you also need the opportunities. So I think, I've been given that opportunity here. So I appreciate that.
And I like to share that when I first met you, when I was in the showroom and I saw you walk in with the Goldbergs, I was impressed.
Oh,
I was super impressed. I was like, wait, Latina? And we just kind of linked in and clicked in, and I was just so proud of you. So when Yvette, wanted to talk about women empowerment and wanted to kind of share, said, I know the girl, I know the lady, because I was very impressed. And you run a very big ship, girl, very big ship. So
yes,
I just
support a lot of people. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of showrooms.
Yeah.
A lot of showrooms. Sorry.
So, Carmen, reflecting on your career, what's the most significant let's say, that you heard throughout your career that gave you the resiliency to want to continue to push through and to reach the level that you have reached as VP today?
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting question. I've had a lot of people in my life that have given me some advice, right, and opportunities to grow. But looking back, to be honest with you, if I had to think about my younger self, right, when I was, starting out, and especially in one of my more significant jobs, which was MasterCard, I would say to myself, well, what am I going to do next, right? And I had to think about my career development, because at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? You have to manage your own career. You have to learn who you are, what you want to do. And when you know those things and, you think back at how to start it, right? you start feeling a little bit better about how much knowledge you need here or how much knowledge do you need there. And so in thinking back and reflecting on my journey, my career, the question is, what was the most significant no, right?
Yes.
It's funny because I can't remember not getting a job. Does that make sense? So I haven't been told no specifically, but I will give you an example. When I was working at MasterCard, I worked for MasterCard for 12 years, right? But my job there started off as an administrative assistant. I went into an admin role for international associates, right, employees, and learned a ton on that side. But then I wanted to do something different. I went into a learning and development job. I was a manager in learning and development. So I developed a ton of different training programs for the associates and worked in that capacity for a long time. And then there was an opportunity. The company was going through a reorganization at the time, and my job was not in jeopardy, right? So I was still going to be the learning and development manager for as long as I wanted the job. I did not want to stay in that role because I enjoy moving around. I enjoy growing and learning different things, which is one of the reasons why I love the HR role. Being an HR professional allows you to dip your toe into every single part of the business. Right. So I went to my manager and I said, I would like to be what they call an HR generalist, meaning that you know a little bit about everything in HR, not just learning and development, not just benefits, not just, whatever, anything else, anything specific. And I thought the opportunity to learn about just general HR, I wanted that opportunity from them because they were going through a reorganization. I thought this was a great opportunity to market myself in that role.
Carmen.
He's back.
Sorry.
You're back.
I lost you there. I'm like talking and I don't even know where I left off, by the way.
When you were working in MasterCard and you found an opportunity because the organization was revamping itself and you wanted to go
Right.
into
Okay.
HR.
So I connected with the senior vice president of the HR generalist, of the HR professionals. And I said, I would like an opportunity to move into that role. Can you give me that opportunity? And she says, well, Carmen, you don't have a lot of experience. And unfortunately, I don't really have a role. I need somebody that had the experience. So I said, okay, well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. That was the first time somebody's ever really told me no, believe it or not, that I wasn't ready. And I went back to my leader and I said, I want you to lay me off. I want you to give me a severance package because I need to do something different. And at the same time, I had just bought my house and my family thought I was crazy to say, you have no job. How could you buy a house? And I said, no, I'm going to be good. Don't worry. And essentially, I said, I'm going to start marketing myself as an HR professional, as an HR generalist. And I got a severance package from MasterCard and I was able to work towards that. I got a certificate for HR generalist. I did all these different things before I started looking for another job. And I got an interview right away. I think it was like 2 miles away from my house at the time. And the person was excited, hired me, even though I didn't have the HR background. But I told him I did. I told him I knew exactly what I was doing. Just give me the opportunity and I'll show you. And sure enough, that's where my HR generalist experience started. And I started dipping my toe in all these different things. I did learning and development, so I already knew that. I developed courses on discipline. I already knew that. I managed a mentoring program for I should say an internship program for the internship the interns at MasterCard. So I already knew the employee relations size. So all of those little things I already knew. And I said, you know what? I know that I could do this. And I got the job with the pharmaceutical company and, was promoted there as manager manager in HR and just progressed from there. So that was significant for me when I was told, I can't teach you. I can't develop you. I need somebody that has more experience. So to me, I heard no, I can't do that. And I just said, no, I'm not going to accept that, because I truly believe that if you want something, you can go out and get it. And
Absolutely.
that
So
was my, yeah,
Absolutely.
you advocated for yourself, and
I did.
you knew you were ready for more.
Yeah.
So you
Right.
created that opportunity instead of waiting for somebody to create it for you.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah. It
love
was
that.
very significant in my life when I made that decision.
Well, it's like Yvette said, you created that opportunity because you knew what your skills were. You knew what you could
Right.
do, and you just, you leveled it up. You went and you took your courses and you figured it out and you took the time off to do it. And that's what a lot of women need to do. But, sometimes we get in our heads and we don't move on. When we hear that no, sometimes we get no, we regress,
You step
but
back.
you
Yeah.
step back, but sometimes you can't do that. You have to say, no, I can do this.
Listen, men don't do that. Men go into a job
That's
and they
right.
say, they may not know 110% of that job, but they say they do.
Yeah.
And they get the job. Women have a tendency of saying, well, I don't know, maybe this percent I don't know, and this part I don't know, maybe I'm not good for that job. And rather than thinking that way, think in terms, okay, maybe I don't know that right now. How can I do that? And today is so much easier, right? Today you can go on the internet, you can go on ChatGPT, tell me about this, tell me about that.
Yeah.
Whatever AI tool is out there, you can do it. And so I do truly believe that we have so many advantages today as a woman than we did when I started almost 30 years ago, right? In HR.
Totally agree. So when I worked with Raymore and Flanagan, I was a lead, and there was someone that they were shadowing me, and she said that exact word. She said, "I can't do this. This is not for me. How am I going to sell this?" And I said, "Focus on mattresses." And I told her, "Focus on mattresses," and she did very well. And you're right, women sometimes we tend to be shy. Oh no, I can't do that, or afraid. We have fear. But
Yeah.
I think we have now take the reins, and I think we're better. We're more in control of what we want to do professionally. So
Yes,
thank you for that.
absolutely. I believe more and more women know how to self-direct themselves, in their career and the risk that they want to take. Um, Tell us a little bit about, like, throughout your career, how have you managed when you're dealing with profit and loss? When you are in sales, or when you know how does that affect a person's mindset or mental health state when you are affected, and you're not seeing those profits, but you're seeing more losses?
So from a professional end, right, as an HR professional, I mean, I work with obviously a lot of salespeople, right? And I work with a lot of driving teams that are commission based, which are considered not sales, but they're commission based associates, right? They make money on delivering their product. And then I have the sales team. I think it's important. The mindset has to be, we can still succeed. One of the things that I admire about the company that I work for is that they're very smart people. They know when to switch to something different if something is not working. As an entrepreneur, you have to try something, and then if it doesn't work, let's move on to something else. And when you think about profit and losses and things like that, I don't get bogged down with that. And to be honest, I don't get bogged down with that. I get bogged down more with the behaviors, with the culture that you want to create with people, the opportunities you want to do, talk to people and have this mindset where we're going to get it done. And one of the things about us, especially here, is we raise the bar on ourselves. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
you're constantly raising the bar. And so, if we can't do that, then we're not going to be successful in anything that we do, right?
Can I share? Can I share about
Yeah.
raising the bar? Because walk the walk, talk the talk, raise the bar. Be one team.
Yep.
It's always like treat the employees like you would treat the customers. And
Yes.
that's what was so. How can I say? I was never in sales, girl. I was never in sales, and my first leader was a woman, female, hired me. And she just kind of told me, she said, "Listen, this is your business. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to figure it out and come to me when you need something." And that's one of the things, leadership. you develop these leaders. You know, you work with these leaders, and these leaders come to us and they kind of sit us down and say, maybe you should work on this and work on that. That's a big thing. And going back to Yvette's question about how do you deal with profits and loss, it's very hard when you have to meet that week and you don't, you can't make that money, and it's mentally stressful because you don't want to get called in the office and, hey, what's going on? Which actually they do it very gracefully when you're like, when your numbers are not good. But I definitely appreciate the fact that they are very compassionate to a person when they're not doing well, because that's important. How can I help you? That's what I always heard from my leader. How can I help you? Your numbers are not looking great. So I kind of appreciated that from the company. So
Well, I like what
to share
Carmen
that.
said, that you have to leave room to pivot and know when you're going to pivot and come up with a strategy. And I think with everything in life that we do, we need to use that particular strategy and not stay stuck.
Yeah. And listen, as
Yeah.
as a woman, as just a person that runs a household, for example, right? You're going to have some losses and you're going to have some gains, and you have to determine, you're going to sit down and do your budget, right? You're going to sit down and decide, okay, these are the things we're going to spend money on. These are the things we're not spending money on. I'm going through the process of retirement, right? So my goal is to retire in a couple of years. And, my accountant says, I need you to keep a spreadsheet of all of your expenses. So when we sit down and we have a conversation about what is it that you actually need and what do you want, then we have those numbers, right? So I think about that even from a business perspective is, do I really need this piece of paper as opposed do I need this stapler, right? Like, what do I really need? I need the paper because I need to write on that paper. I need to make sure that I can articulate what I'm saying on that paper. The stapler I don't need. I can fold my papers together. It's not a big deal, right? So
Right.
you got to think about all of that when you are generally in business, generally running a household, any part of your life, you have to think that way.
Absolutely. Carmen, during your career, can you name a mentor that you admire, whether it was a female or a man? Who did you rely on to provide you with guidance?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And I thought about that when you sent me the questions. I thought about it and I thought, I have had many mentors in my career. I didn't just have one person that guided me. I was very lucky because I had the opportunity to work with really great people. And I will say that most of the people that I worked with, most of the people that I see as a mentor to me were women, women of color, just different types of women, right? It was an opportunity for me to work with, I had an SVP that took me under her wing and taught me how to write training. And then I had a VP that did the same thing. She sent me away to, a course where you learn how to write training. Like they invested the time to talk to me, to show me the ropes, and I appreciate that. That was something that I can't even, um, I can't, when I think back at it, it's been multiple people in my life, and again, I would say if there was one man, it was probably just one that really, and I can't even think about, to be honest, I can't even think about whether or not it's the gentleman that gave me the opportunity, right, to be an HR generalist. I don't think so. I think that I drove myself in that role and I made sure that I, did everything I had to do to get there. But prior to that, it was women and it was multiple women. It was different types of women as well. So it's funny because I didn't, when I started at MasterCard, I didn't have my degree. And I thought, I really want to get my degree. I mean, that's a goal, right? You always want to, get yourself in a different level, right? And whether
Right.
it's a job, whether it's just your own mindset, right? And I wanted to get it, but I never did. I was a young mother, very busy, working, taking care of my household, my family. So it was really hard. And I had a friend that said to me, come with me to the college. I'm going to sign up for some courses, continue my education. You should come with me. And I'm like, I'll go with you. So when we get there, she goes, do you want to sign up for a class? I'm like, no, I don't want to sign up for a class. I don't have time. And I sat with her in the hallway. I can close my eyes and see this. And I sat in the hallway with her near some lockers in the school, and she's going through her coursework, her classes that she's selecting. And then she did not take no for an answer from me. She says, I think you should sign up for the psychology class. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have time. Carmen, you have time. Sign up. That was my first class. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And that's when my journey on education started. And I'll tell you, there were times where I didn't have a sitter at night. I brought my daughter to the class, and she would sit in the back and she would do her homework while I was in the front line, in the front row, listening to what the teacher's telling me to do. Because I was at that point, once I commit to something, I'm going to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
And that I had to do that. And I sure enough did. I was very lucky. I transferred from a community college to, Marymount College. And then from there, I graduated from Fordham University. So, I said, I'm not going to say, yes, I'm going to do something and then not follow through. And that's a big deal for me. I taught my daughter that way. She went to college and she didn't like her roommate. She wanted to come home. And I said, we made a commitment for 6 months and you're not coming back until we're done. And sure enough, she stayed for the entire 4 years in the school because she, as like me, I showed her to be driven and, I wasn't going to give up. And
that's how you strive, right? When you strive like that, when you commit yourself. But it's interesting you said how a friend of yours was the one that took you, because Yvette and I are always looking at what can we do to upgrade, to do. So you saying that, it's inspiring,
Yeah.
inspiring to hear that a friend, a female, a sister helped you elevate yourself to be seriously where you're at, because she motivated you. Could do it. How important is that?
She did not take no for an answer.
Right.
And I kept saying, no, I can't. And I don't have time, right? Because you have to have time.
Mm-hmm.
And she did not take, she pretends she's taking no, but then when I sit down and she's no, you could do this one. And I appreciate that. I remember that. Like I said, I can close my eyes and see myself sitting down on the hallway floor and just talking to her and her telling me to do it. And I went home. I said to my husband, I said, what do you think? And he goes, if this is what you want to do, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept it that way. That's what I did.
To me, the beauty of being a woman is wearing many hats and knowing how to balance things. And even if we come across barriers, is knowing how to overcome those barriers. And also, I like how you said, accountability. Accountability is very important, that when you decide to do something, you need to follow it through. Because sometimes I feel, people don't take that seriously when they decide to make a commitment. And if it doesn't work well, then they give up very easily. Yeah. So I love that drive, as a Latina woman, how you know accountability, how you have that drive, and you also install those values in your daughter, which is huge.
When I graduated, I graduated high school in the Bronx. I lived in the Bronx. I graduated high school. The high school was not a great high school. I was not a great student, which is another reason why I thought, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to put myself through this. And honestly, I wasn't a good student. I graduated high school and I put on my shoes, a skirt, a oversized blazer, and I walked the streets to get a job. And I wanted a job. I wanted to be a bank teller so badly. So badly. And I was filling out applications and, just basically walking the pavement to find the job that I wanted. And I didn't get an opportunity to work in a bank. I think if I had, I probably would have still been in the bank all this time, because that's, that was I was like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I didn't have an opportunity to do that. Instead, I found a job in a children's store, and that's where I stayed and, moved on from there. But it was after graduation, I knew that I had to do this. And it was an opportunity that it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what you want to do right there and then. just try to do something. And that's really what I say.
I love
So
that.
what would you say to your 18-year-old self now with all the experience and all the accomplishments that you have gone through?
Yeah, I mean, I would say exactly what I just said is don't stop. You know, again, I was very fortunate because I had people in my life, in different jobs where they said, you can do this. I worked at the food emporium, okay, for many years. I think it was like 10 years, maybe more. I don't know, but it was part-time and then it was full-time. And when I went into the food emporium, I worked in one store, I worked in another store, I was a cashier. And I, s- I never stayed as a cashier because that's not what I just wanted. I just didn't want to be a cashier. I wanted to have multiple jobs. And I said to my store manager, I said, I could do something else. What do you give me something else to do? So he would constantly give me, the front end or managing the front end or stocking or whatever it is, right? And I consistently said, I need to do something different. And he gave me the front end manager job one day and said, I'm going to promote you to this job. And then all of a sudden, I got promoted to being a bookkeeper. All right. I don't know math to save my life, but I was a bookkeeper. And I said, okay. And I did that for many, many years as well. So, you have to, if I had to say anything to my 18-year-old self, I would say to do better in school, honestly, to really work hard because I had to work extra hard because I didn't do that.
Mm.
Right. And if I could tell my teenage self something is focus on the education, focus on, driving that as opposed to worrying about, making money, getting a job, and look, the way I grew up, I needed to make money. I wasn't privileged. I didn't have any of that. My mother moved around a lot and I was, from a single parent home, so you, that resilience has to be there and you have to make sure that you could, follow that up with action all the time. And I think for me, I probably would say, to temper myself because I could get a little agitated very quickly. Now I'm older, right? So now now I can see myself and say, okay, Carmen, calm down. But when I was young, I was a little hot. I was a hot top. I mean, and so I would probably tell myself to just calm down. It is hard when you know that you have to survive differently. And, calming down is not um, part of what you can do. You can't stop,
Well, it's part of our culture too, Carmen. As
Yeah.
Latinas, we have that, tú
Mhm.
sabes, that energy of, you know. So it's the truth. And I was hot-headed too, and I was like working from clinic and doing this and doing that. So, and Yvette we're always talking about everything that she's done as well. I
Right.
mean, it's amazing. So it's in our system. It's in our system. Um, how you are, like I said earlier, when you walked in with all these guys, because it was just you and all these men, do you feel comfortable expressing yourself? I mean, just trying to get the gist. How do you feel when you're around the Goldberg, not the people that you work for? How do you feel? Because they're all men.
Yes. And, this is the thing. There is a perception that maybe I can walk in and be confident in myself and so on, right? I think that's important. You have to be confident in yourself. But this is the thing. That doesn't always happen, right?
Mm.
And your ability to manifest that you have to do that. You have to manifest that confidence. Um, and I'll be very honest, when I have to speak to one of the Goldbergs or VP and I'm not comfortable with the subject matter, it's not easy. You do the best you can. I'm not the most, I always say I'm not the most articulate person. I don't have these, I don't speak with this big vocabulary, if you will, so sometimes you do feel a little less than because you don't have that ability to speak higher than you are, right? But I'm also a very humble person and I know that about myself. right? I know that that's important to recognize in myself. And so therefore, when you do that, you're able to speak to people no matter what role they're in. And there are times where I get nervous and somebody, a leader, an owner comes and talks to you. You're like, oh, hey, how are you? And then you don't know what to say, right? And that happens. And it's, sometimes you can kick yourself when that conversation is over and say, I should have said X, Y, and Z as opposed to this. And, but you figure it out. And you have to, there are times I've had a lot of new partners in my career, right? Meaning, business partners. And, you have to figure out how do you develop the relationship with them and then feel comfortable having conversations with them using
Right.
whatever topic that we're going to talk about, right? I may not be the most business savvy person, but I can tell if somebody doesn't care for me, right? I can tell that if
Right.
you don't like me, I could see that.
Right.
Right. And so
I
walking
feel that.
with all of these, men, I mean, they're very respectful. They know who you are. They, you try your best to articulate what you want from them and, you move forward. I don't make a big deal out of that because, maybe because of who I am, because I'm just not that person. I don't make a big deal. I mean, I walk into a room and I say, hi, hey, how you doing? And that's it. If you want to talk to me, you talk to me.
But I believe that's the key, being humble, that humility, whether you know the subject matter or you don't know the subject matter, is what's going to carry you through because your light is going to shine no matter what. And you're showing people, who you are in your heart. So to me, that means a lot.
Yeah.
It's not so much, the degrees or what people have accomplished, it's how you carry yourself.
Your authenticity, basically. And that's one of the things that I was, when we had these meetings at the university, it's your authenticity is what matters. You have to be honest. You have to be authentic. You have to be because people, it's going to show.
Yeah.
When you have an opportunity coming through the door and you say, hi, welcome to Raymore, you have to be authentic. They're going to feel that energy.
Listen, I'm very lucky to work for people that care about me.
Yeah.
My leader cares about me.
Yeah.
And she is constantly asking
Bottom
me,
line,
how
yep.
am I doing?
Yep.
When you have that, it's good because you're able to excel. You're able to give more. I can give you as much as I can, as much as you want, as long as you treat me well. And that's important. And as a woman, we don't see that, in ourselves. We just see each other, we're like, oh, well, we're women. We have to do everything, when really they have to do it for you too. And you got to, that's the only way to be successful in business. You have to create alliances. You have to create partnerships that are good for you and for that person. Because if you can't do that, forget it. You're not going to be successful. You do not work alone. This is what I always say. So you don't work alone. I have a team of people that thank God that they're with me because they are so great. And I'm very fortunate to have people like that and create a culture that they know they can come to me if they need something.
You also created a talent show, which we didn't have for a while, the talent thing going on. That was amazing. That's something that you and Michael kind of how can I say, incorporated into like the Christmas thing, into the award ceremony. Talk about how you find that talent and you kind of help people with that talent.
I am very fortunate because again, I've had the opportunity to find good people to be surrounded by, right? Because look, I have two very big markets. I have a lot of people that I support. I cannot manage two markets by myself. I could pretend I can, but I really can't, right? And so finding the right people for the role is critical. And then you have to trust that those people are going to do the right thing. And if you don't have that trust, if you don't have that opportunity to build the trust and build their, confidence in that they can do the job, then I'm not really sure what else you can't do everything alone, so I delegate more today than I did a year ago, or 2 years ago. There was a time where I kept everything to myself and I did it myself, but I've had to learn as my markets grow that I can't, and I have to hire the right people, and put them in the right places. And I've had that opportunity to do that, and finding that is not easy. And you go through a lot of different people before you connect with somebody and say, I think this is the right person for my team. Right. And so I've had that opportunity to build a good team and find, people that have the talent. I mean, we do that right now with recruiting, looking for salespeople, looking for operations people. You have to you want to find the right people for this environment, right? We could be great at so many things, but at the end of the day, if they're not great to join, they're not able to join us because they just don't have the ambitiousness to do it, or the opportunity in their mind. You have to have that mindset to want to do this.
With that being said, Carmen, we're coming to the conclusion of our show. What is one thing that you want to leave our listeners with as VP in this industry that you have learned and perhaps you want to share with our listeners?
Listen, that's a good question. I think that for me, what I would like to relay is that you should never stop. Never stop developing yourself. Never accept the word no. You can do this. And, I've had really great people in my life, which is the other thing I would say is find people that will advocate for you, that will support you, that support your vision of who you want to be. And I think that that's really important, is as you continue your career and as you continue through, having these, talks about where you want to be, where you want to go, find the right people to support you, right? Build those relationships and just keep going. Don't stop, because stopping if you have to stop, I don't know that you're going to get back on that horse. It takes a long time.
Good one. That's a good one, because then you have to reset. You have to reset yourself again.
Yeah, your mind has to keep going. Yeah. And if you can't do that, then you're stepping back, right? You're stepping backwards, not forward. And yes, you're going to have a lot of failures. So there's going to be times. I mean, there are times where I can present a project and it doesn't go anywhere, right? And that's okay. I always go back to it and I always say, okay, let's try this again. Now there's different leaders. Let's look at this differently. So that's why I do not believe in stopping. I believe that you have to keep going.
Don't give up.
Don't give up. And you have to have people around you. Surround yourself with people that feel that same way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carmen. We really appreciate your energy. We appreciate what you have to say. We want women to be empowered. That's our mission. We want women to understand, Latinas, we got this.
Well, I mean, listen, I hope I answered your questions, the way you expected. And I think that, I think this is a great thing to give women an opportunity to speak their mind, to figure out what they want to do, and to know that there are people out there that can support them, can be with them, right? And try to do the best for them. And I think that just worked for everybody.
Thank you so much, Carmen, for
of course.
Taking out the time to be here with us today.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much.
All the best, girl. All the best.
All right. Okay. I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by MHA of Dutchess County and produced by CMJW Entertainment. Thank you once again to this episode's sponsor, Levia Med Spa.